Hey sweet people, how's it going? Welcome to another episode of the Sweetspot Podcast. I'm your host Marc T, and today I'm talking to LA-based musician Pàppa D. He is a multi-instrumentalist, he's a singer-songwriter, performer, he's a film music composer and an educator. And this is gonna be a deep dive into the creative mind of a musician, of a very talented musician. He started playing music and composing when he was 12 years of age. He works today in so many different fields and so many lines of work within the music industry. And his music itself is very versatile. He blends influences from jazz, blues, classical music, has a very big oeuvre of different styles and musical genres he does. So to me it was very intriguing to talk to him about what the core of his musical understanding is, what his sweet spot in his creative career is. And we touched on a lot of things, talked about creative processes, talked about music, and there are a lot of takeaways, not only for musicians, also for creatives, and again, as always, also for entrepreneurs in the, not only creative field, in any field, I guess, because he's a solopreneur, technically. I mean, he's promoting himself, he's managing himself, and at the same time, he's creating his music and his performances. So it's a very interesting situation to be in, to navigate this ambiguity of managing, rationale, career planning side of the whole music business, and at the same time being at the top of your game as a performer, as a composer. And I think Dimitrios, Pàppa D, is navigating that really well. And we had a long chat about some parts and bits about music itself, going really deep into genres, the creative writing process, and then we do the zoom out and we talk about the industry and how he strategizes and kind of plans a career. So this is a really cool episode if you're not only a music buff but also interested in building a creative career and being an entrepreneur in a creative sense. Other than that, you maybe have seen on social media or different websites that we did a big opening party here at the Mothership Studio, which hosts my art studio and gallery, and also a Sweetspot studio, and it was fantastic, I can tell you. If you're interested in what happened, we had an amazing live DJ set by the techno legends U69, U96. We hosted a little art show, presented some of our works. We had a little preview screening of the documentary we shot on our trip to LA this summer. And it's been full house and it's been a lot of fun. So you can check that out. And if you're ever in Hamburg, you can see if there are some events happening here. Or you can just drop into the Sweetspot studio and we can talk about your brand, your creative processes, and your purpose as an entrepreneur. But without further ado, please enjoy my talk to Dimitri, also known as Pàppa D.
Welcome to the Sweet Side. This is the Sweetspot Podcast with Marc T, investigating entrepreneurship, purpose, and the creative life.
Sweet people, I'm happy he is with me here today. Please welcome Dimitri. Hey, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How's it going?
Perfect in Hamburg. But not as exciting because this is the evening. This is your morning in LA. You're coming to us from Los Angeles, California, and you played a show last night. How was that?
That was great. I've actually been playing very, very regularly on a daily basis almost. So every night there will be something happening. Some nights I have even 2 or 3 shows kind of back to back, and they can be all sorts of things, little performances or small sets as a feature artist or my own sets. So it was pretty fun.
That is fantastic. Where did you play?
We're playing at the Sassafras Saloon. It's a venue in Hollywood,
Mhm.
very New Orleans inspired, where they brought a house from Savannah, Georgia, from the 1800s, and they installed it within the bar. So it's a really really good vibe. The whole thing looks like a saloon, and others say it's haunted. It's just a very nice vibe. Yeah, and we play up on the balcony, so you see everybody
Perfect.
kind of at the bar downstairs, and you're up in the balcony, almost like a rodeo, or you know,
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. So,
yeah.
and you know what? Whenever I talk to a musician, that's one of the first questions I have to ask. If you're not playing, and we're going to talk about your music, of course, a lot, but what are you listening to right now? What's your favorite album these days?
Wow. Uh, I I have to say this, like that since I came back from New York in May, I've been really pretty much in Los Angeles for the last 4 or 5 months, just um, creating momentum musically and hitting all these open mics. I discovered a lot of folky artists, because it's a lot of like singer-songwriter, guitar-based playing. So through that, I kind of started going back to the roots and listening to all of these folky and singer-songwriter LA-based artists,
Mhm.
going back to late 60s and 70s, and got fascinated by that sound. So definitely a lot of artists like Jim Croce, Don McLean, um, just albums like that. Gilbert O'Sullivan,
Mhm.
just a
Mhm.
lot of that soft rock singer songwriter, very heavy uh, on lyrics,
Mhm.
and just study again all these beautiful stories, how they're putting that stuff together. But I do have Jim Croce and Don McLean lately on the repeat. I don't know. I feel I'm all over the place. I don't know. Just with all the kind of music stuff,
That's
I
perfect.
just shuffle things and Doobie Brothers.
Nice.
Um,
Doobie Brothers, love it. Oh, it's funny that you say singer-songwriter stuff, because if I listened to a lot of your music over the last days, for this interview, of course, and there's so much classical influences in there. There's some blues, but also, yeah, classically trained stuff and a lot of jazz. And now you talk about such simple and storytelling-based music. How does that resonate in you? Do you just pick out some things you love, or does that, I don't know, do you enter a more simplistic country phase now? What do you think happens if you listen to that kind of stuff?
wow. Well, that's a great question. I feel it's all very very much in phases.
Mhm.
So as a musician or an artist, I kind of call them the periods. You have the
Mhm.
period where you're writing a lot, and that has branches to it. You can be writing. You can be more lyrically driven and be writing a lot of lyrics, words, or songs, which I usually do during my travels. I just get that inspiration when I travel. I have just these creative juices flowing more, because I'm not in the house. I'm just
Mhm.
out there, and the nature during the travels. So I just read a lot of the lyrics there, and other times it might be more compositionally driven. So that's where all the classical inspiration or the jazz stuff, just really instrumental music, which for me is almost as a healing
Mhm.
process, where I just sit on the piano and start with an idea, and the recorder is always writing. And this is more of a concept, but I managed to capture a lot of stuff just by setting an intention
Mhm.
and press and record. And one of these things was the from the classical stuff that you probably listened, being inspired by Bach,
Mhm.
by Johann Sebastian Bach, and just taking his idea of the 24 preludes, prelude and fugue that he has um, from all the keys, major and minor, doing the prelude and then the fugue. I took that, but I implemented the beauty and the more lyrical and ballady, so to speak, tone that Chopin has in his 24 preludes. So I just came up with this concept, and I started doing this series of books that where I would just go, from C major to C minor, D flat major, D flat minor, all the way up to B, and I would record that as a flowing through composition. And some of these things turned out so beautiful that I had to come back and almost transcribe them. But the whole experiment was to just capture the improvisation with the thematic development, and that's all instrumental music, like you said, Yeah. But to put it in big categories, like I said, it's the process of writing, where when we write, we are more on the writing side, either lyrics or composition, and then we have the more listening or learning process of it, which is periods where I don't necessarily write that much, either writer's block, although I don't really believe in that. I just believe that there is some times where I need to feed my soul more with music. And there's times where I listen to a lot of stuff. I practice a lot. This is where I would just practice classical music, or just trying to put the antennas outside so I can just bring all this information. And I try not to really merge these two periods together, because I feel if I'm really intentionally listening to a lot of Rachmaninoff or a lot of Schubert or Stravinsky or a lot of jazz music, and then I try to write right away, I feel that it's going to be too much in my face, rather than kind of like let it sink in, and then it just becomes a part of me, and then the writing just happens almost magically. So it's a beautiful process, for sure.
And it's very beautifully put. I can well, musically I can only relate a tiny bit, but on a visual level, or with visual arts, I can completely relate. It's like walking through an exhibition and you see, like, I don't know, Rothko images with all the colors, or Twombly with the simplicity and strength with one line and one color. And you can compare it to that. If you're full of that and you would go home and you would start sketching, drawing, it would, you didn't have time to sink in, to become part of you, to analyze, maybe on an emotional level, maybe on an intellectual level, to analyze what makes it unique and what you can bring to it. So I can relate a lot. And I think a lot of people listening can relate too. I think it's even the same with business. You can come out of a, business talk or conversation. You can be super inspired, but that doesn't mean that it works the same way for you, for your company, idea, brand, whatever. So yeah.
Totally 100%. 100%.
Perfect. I mean, we're in the midst of your creative process already. So I have one more thing, because you just mentioned it. The other day I saw an interview with young Yngwie Malmsteen. I don't know if you know that guy. He's this crazy heavy metal guitar player, for all people listening. If you don't know him, he's more hair than human, and he's one of the fastest, most heavy metal guys in the world, I guess. And in this interview, he said, "Oh, I never practice." And I thought about this, what you just said, because you have maybe on a creative level, on a very intuitive level, you have different phases of your process, input, output, contemplation, writing, improvising. But Yngwie Malmsteen said something along those lines. Oh, he never practices. He approaches every time he plugs in the guitar like a performance, like he's on stage. And he improvises a lot. And he talked about, like, especially in the guitar world, a lot of people repeat their solos, have certain phrases and licks they repeat. And he was like, no, I approach it like a concert all the time. And I was just curious what you think of that, because your process sounds way more differentiated.
Well, first of all, he's an incredible guitar player, and he's at a level where he can say these things and can get away with those things and have this level of expertise and skill where I think it's just like a game of words, and let me elaborate on that. I am pretty sure he put thousands of hours to be able to play the way he was playing as a 18, 19-year-old, starting with Alcatraz and, all these other bands. And then, was it like Yngwie Malmsteen's Rising or whatever that band he had, where he had the best singers and really inspired by, the greater guitar players. I don't know. I think he got to a point where it's just a matter of realizations, like why does he do what he does, and what does he need to prove? And we can get caught up on technique and on trying to show off and demonstrating our skill set and stuff. But when that thing is used and utilized in a musical way, you understand that it's only there to complement and enhance whatever musical or creative idea you have already. Mm-hmm. It's just, you're just able basically to think that, if I need to play that, or I dream about playing that, or visualize, or I think this song needs that, I have the technical ability to present that tool. It's a tool, And how did that work for me and made me shift my entire perspective is that instead of just sitting on the piano and not aimlessly, but just practicing, whatever that is scales, is it my chords and my all that kind of stuff, the practice. I switched it to the idea of creating a necessity, because people change when there is a necessity. They don't change the heart. To get a significant change, there has to be a necessity, and people are easier to change out of necessity rather than just because one day they woke up and they're like, I want to change, So somebody who wants to start, working out, it's going to be harder for them to be like, I'm going to start working out and just start going to the gym versus, somebody telling you like, hey, you're obese, you need to lose weight, or, affect your health, or something, like not feeling good about how you look. So I think the really the same thing is for music. So for me personally, when I flipped the coin and I realized that I need to write a song and it needs to have these things, I just started working towards enhancing this lyrical ability, or a word, since English is not my first language, a word that I might need, I'm just gonna go with that intuition and trying to pull up that word and see what that means, see if it fits. So it's a very intuitive process where you're kind of working on it on the spot. Then I always do want to have a general evolution, and have that evolution be constant. So, but that's not practicing. Like if I sit and read books and study other songwriters and poets and all that kind of stuff, I'm not thinking I'm studying right now. I'm just really into that, reading and enhancing this ability. So it's at the back of my head always, that enhancement of the skill set. Now, for piano and, playing with the band, it's just really about getting the sound together, really putting the people together and making it sound good. And all of these things that there might not have to do exactly with you sitting down and just working on your fingers all day, but they really make the difference, because you have to touch base in all of those little things to put together all of these elements and bring them together for the desired outcome. So yeah, but I don't think about it. I'm going to sit down and practice.
Yeah, of course not. You do what you love, right? Yeah. You know what? You just said something very interesting, which I think applies to a lot of creative processes, I think. Because you were talking about like English is not your first language, and you sometimes try out different things and you see if it fits and how it works. And I made the same experience. English is not my first language either. Still, I'm trying to host a podcast. I'm consulting people. I'm working, so to speak, also with the language. And to me, it was a big revelation that you're not using the same blueprints you would compared to your native tongue. It's like you have to think about what you say and how you put it, and you suddenly come up with different sayings, different styles, different comparisons, even like verbal images you paint in ideation sessions and whatever you do, and you're suddenly no longer in your comfort zone, but it also makes you it's no muscle memory compared to an instrument. You can just get down to and play the same scales over and over. If you want to improvise, right, you got to think of something new. And it's the same thing. I once talked to a musician who does that. He changes instruments, even changes to instrument he doesn't really have mastered yet, but the result will be different. It's all about melody and process and new patterns that come up. And it's the same with, let's say, painting. If you create new tools, I mean, it's always paint on canvas, but you can apply it with your hands, you can shoot, color edit, you can do whatever. It doesn't have to be the classical brush. So I guess there is a real creative insight to say, okay, just use different tools and make yourself uncomfortable to try and get down new roads. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah,
I
think that's a beautiful thing right there. And all the mediums are connected in that sense because they're based on the same principles. I really agree with you. And funny enough, I like to make a lot of comparisons and draw inspiration for my music and how I go about the music process in general with painting.
Yeah.
And I always like to say that thing about the tools. So it's the painter's mentality. And a very famous painter said, I want to say it was Bob Ross because we were watching him a lot as kids in Greece, but don't quote me on that. But like basically the quote has it, or how I interpret it has it that when you have 2-3 colors only, you're going to paint with this 3 colors only. And you can have not, I want to say infinite combinations. Yeah. But you just change the proportion. You have a little bit of this, and a little bit of that, more of that, less of this. And you just make all these combinations, but you are still stuck to these 3 colors. They were saying the real beauty of options and possibilities is to be able to have the entire palette of colors and then go and choose these 3 colors. So the first thing has to do with necessity. You only have 3 colors. So you need to use these 3 colors because that's all you have. The second thing has to do with choice. Mm-hmm. You are choosing these 3 colors because you want to choose these 3 colors, not because this is the only 3 colors you have. Yeah. And once I understood that, like I would have people coming back to me after shows and be like, hey, this song is this and this song is that, and it reminds me of this. And like, how do you define your sound? Basically, the same thing you asked me too. I see jazzy stuff and I see bluesy stuff and classical. And then we have the whole like singer-songwriter, and that branches to all sorts of musical styles. And I realized it's because we, like I and like other artists as well, we are equipped with all these tools. And then like I am able to go and pull up these tools that every song might need, but it's not going to be beyond my abilities. Mm-hmm. Like I might not be that great in Indian music or more percussive and Latin based, rhythmical based styles. I'm going to touch base on it, but as far as my knowledge and my skill set is going to go, that's how far the music is going to go. So this is where the practice, quote unquote, or the skill set becomes important. You expand that it becomes part of your palette, it becomes part of your toolkit, and then it's called upon you. Like somebody knowing how to draw with brushes, but they really cannot do the stencil and the black and white and the shadowing. It's not that they don't want to, but they have to work that skill set in order to be able to go and pull that thing out of the palette. Yeah. So it's just, to me, it's just a funny thing, man. It's just such a crazy thing. We're talking about expression, but unless we having the ability to pull that tool, and we're not really able to express ourselves. Yeah. You want to write a song in French, but you don't know French. How the heck are you going to do that? You're going to have to overcome the barrier of needing to write a song in French. And I'm going to say this, and then, we can deviate, up to you. But I was watching an interview by Joni Mitchell the other day, and she was so deep in the songwriting process that she was saying some of her songs take her years to write. And when they asked her to elaborate on that, she was saying that she has a few songs that the feel of them, the songwriting, and how she hears the vocality of the words. It's a language that is not English. She hears stuff in Spanish, and she hears stuff in Portuguese, and she hears stuff in French. So, I mean, imagine what kind of crazy concept is that, to be able to be that deep in the songwriting process, where you hear a song, but you hear it in French. And all of a sudden you understand that, wow, unless I work with a native French speaker or somebody who can write that for me, I have to learn French in order to be able to convey these ideas. And and I think that's fascinating. I think this is exactly what I was telling you before, how people change out of necessity. And that would create instant and a way more effective results. At least for me, like, I'm thinking, if I ever came to that point where I need to write a song in French, I would really teach myself way faster than just be like, oh, I want to pick up a new language. What shall we do? Oh, maybe French sounds kind of cool. You know what I mean?
100%.
So it's just a crazy, beautiful thing. That idea of intention.
Yeah, I really like that. And we can riff on that, definitely. I mean, thinking about the sweet people listening, maybe not all of them are painters or musicians, but I think this goes for every discipline. Again, this is, I think, a nugget of wisdom that you can try and translate for different options. And I especially think this idea of development and necessity comes down often to an openness. Let's say you're not Joni Mitchell, or you're not trained in this creative process. Let me say it like this. I believe that sometimes people get their calling and they're on the right path, and they get these ideas and these callings. And if you're an unexperienced songwriter, let's say, and you get ideas for a Spanish song, do you chase that down? Do you go down that road, or do you not? And I think that can happen in other disciplines as well. Like, you have a little tiny studio startup idea, whatever, and then these ideas come to you. Hey, let's not do it like this. Let's go a completely different way. Like no other studio, like no other startup, whatever, has done it before. And it takes a lot of, and I think this is sometimes what you have more freedom as an artist, maybe, and you have a different way to expand thinking sometimes compared to other jobs or other missions he chose for life. But I think if you would follow that down, there's a lot of these callings or opportunities, but the way you handle them and the way you allow to intrude on your thinking and your creative process even, I think that makes a big difference as well.
Yeah. Well, the way we have to think about that is that a lot of these arts and artists and art forms are very personal. It's a very individual approach. How I discovered it works for me best is when people ask me, or people are being asked, what are their musical influences? So when you say, like, I have artists who, really love Johnny Mitchell, or really love, uh, you know, um, from pop artists to, you name it, all sorts of artists. I think when you're at the young stage of your songwriting, whether you're young or not, let's just say in the immature, first primitive stages of songwriting, we have influences. Okay, so the influences are very, very direct. I hear Piano Man. I hear you're looking for this resemblance. Oh, Billy Joel is a pianist. Billy Joel is a pianist and a singer. He has that song. Oh, it's a waltz, and the combination of your technical skill set and ability with your musical interpretation and how you perceive music, they come together and they create a little melting pot, and you start to identify all these things, and you start writing like them. And when the process at the beginning is immature and young, you will find yourself sounding a bit too similar, which is not a bad thing, but it is not transcribing. Like this is coming from the jazz culture. Like when you want to learn, you're learning the trumpet and you want to pick up an instrument, you want to learn like a Chet Baker solo. You touch that solo, you get a glimpse of the magic that this artist created, and that's how you learn the vocabulary. So it's encouraged to enhance this ability and just go there and transcribe and listen. And the same thing we kind of do with songwriting too, with different artists. What did they write? What are their stories about? What the chords are using? You're studying the art of songwriting. Yeah. But when you go and write, you want to be able to detach all of that stuff and not sound identical. So the way it changed for me, the whole game, was by this diversity of all these songwriters. So when the classical can meet jazz and swing, and the New Orleans style can meet rock and funk, and that's also spread, then that, in combination of just writing, putting in the work and the volume, just generating material, I find that the more I do that, the closer I get to whatever that Pàppa D sound is, and that creates a unification. So Johnny Mitchell has her approach, and every other artist has its approach. I think it's a very beautiful feeling to find this resemblance with every artist, and it really fuels my creativity, at least, because you resonate with them. You just get a glimpse of them. So if I'm watching this interview and I hear Johnny Mitchell and she's talking about her life and she's talking about how she's writing that song, and through her I get inspired to do the same.
Yeah.
I don't have to do it right away just because Johnny Mitchell did it. But at some point when I write something and I'm going to have that calling and I'm going to think about it, I'm going to say, man, this song could really sound great in Portuguese. And the time allows it, and it doesn't appear as a distraction, rather as a creative outlet, then it's just going to happen.
Yeah.
But the one thing that one of my professors told me was to be a little careful with all the influences that are around us. I think that's kind of what you said when you started the question, that we are at a point where we can get distracted so easily. So if you're working on a podcast and then you're thinking, oh, now I want to do this, and then I want to do that, and then I want to do that, just to be a little bit more cautious and careful to not overextend ourselves and stretch ourselves thin.
Yeah.
So I just trying to find that thin balance between following a calling, but at the same time understand that, wow, making a commitment to learn another language or making a commitment to learn another instrument, it is
Yeah.
It is a commitment, and that's going to take away from other stuff you could be doing. So I'm always trying to approach it in a very felt way. Does it feel right? Is it the right time?
Yeah.
And as long as you put in the work, it's just transforms from one medium to the other.
100%. That's exactly what I wanted to add. Yeah, I think because, as you said, I think the sweet spot between the going after your vision very, very, very strong, and not make it a sprint at the same time, and be playful and enjoy the trip. This reminds me of when I started to, whenever I saw movies or heard music, I was watching myself enjoying that. And I remember, let's say, I was listening to music and I was like, fuck, man, this sounds so good. This makes me want to cry. Why is that? I mean, I enjoyed it, but then like a moment later, I was like, I have to know what this is. I have to understand how this works. Or in movies like jump scares, I was super scared. I loved to watch horror movies when I was a kid. And I was like, damn, I know it's a movie. How am I so into this? I want to understand how that works in editing and writing. And I remember there was this thing, it's called Trugschluss in Germany. I think it's deceptive cadence or something like this, when it sounds like you go full scale, dum 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 dum, and it's like you come back to the beginning, but you change from dur to moll, major to minor, something like this. And it's like,
okay, yeah.
Well, this sounds like
deceptive.
it's you're back at where you began, but it's now you're sad or now you're happy. And it was always like this. Damn, I gotta understand how that works, and to me, the journey is always like this. It captures your interest, your curiosity. And then if you could take something like the nugget is deceptive cadence. I take that with me and I enjoyed the process, and now I can use it to make my vision come true or something like this,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's truly a beautiful thing. All these things you're able to do, and that deceptive cadence, that's one of the first like structures in classical music, and we were like in the 16th 17th century, right before romanticism, and you have the dominant chord, basically the 5, that just resolves to the 6, which is the minor. So, but the 6 and the root, the tonic, basically the pum 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 pum, the resolution.
Yes.
That they are the parallel major and minor. So C major will have the parallel minor, the relative minor. Sorry, the relative minor will be the relative key will be the key of A minor.
Yeah.
So when you go from the 5 to the 6, you just achieve that thing. Now this is the first, the most like basic in the scale of how you can create emotions through the chord changes on the pyramid.
Yeah.
And then it just gets deeper. So that's where like knowledge comes in. And I actually never really geeked about that stuff. I think it's just a geeking that I did in my mind, but I never showed off with that thing where, I would write a song and somebody would approach me and be like, wow, that chord, man, on the bridge, like all these, like in the music communities, people just geeking around talking about that stuff. Yeah. And this is part of my knowledge. Like I know all of these things, but to be able to put it in a musical way where it honors the song, this was the money maker for me. This was the game changer. 100%. To really be like, hey, you can clutter that and you can shove a bunch of chords there. What do you want to say? What do you want to say? So it all comes down to that honoring, I call it the muse. It's the inspirations. That's that divine alignment with something like above us, where you get an idea for a painting or something you need to say or write down, and you just have to capture it. And then it's just that alignment, and through us, like as entities, it just flows out and becomes reality. Because I mean, if you don't have that, what do you have? You just have a bunch of ideas just floating up there in the universe.
Yes.
And my friend put it in a beautiful way. It's like every idea you don't write down, every dream you don't pursue, every um every just creative outlet that you just don't go for it. It just kind of floats up there
Mhm.
in the atmosphere, and somebody else
100%.
grabs that vibration and makes something with it.
Yeah.
So and it's just so funny, like, if I'm sure, if you look back into your life and think about times where you wanted to do something and for some reason it hasn't happened, but man, that idea was fire. You were like drooling just thinking about it. You're like, oh, it's gonna be great. And then for some reason it just wasn't captured, just didn't happen. And then one day you just see it somewhere by somebody else, and you're like, wow,
Yeah,
man,
of
I
course.
thought about that. So it's just crazy how these things work, man. It's
I think
completely
so
crazy.
too. I think so too. I mean, their ideas and inspiration, they're children of our time, right? And of our culture and of the zeitgeist and everything else that's happening. And yeah, if you don't do it, someone else is gonna make it. But you know what, Dimitri, before we dive even more into our creative process and everything, I want to take one step back, and I'm really interested. We talked so much about we heard you talk about your teachers, you studying, your music. I want to take Sweet People back to where it all started. I mean, you make music since what? Since you were 12 or something? Really, you started really early. And I wanted to know what was your first touch point with music, and like when did you fall in love with music, and what was your first instrument? And maybe you can take us back to the whole beginning of your musical journey.
Wow. Yeah, it's definitely been a journey. I mean, we we go through life, and the pace picks up, and sometimes we forget to look back, and looking back you can realize how far one has come, because we're so cluttered by looking, where do we want to get, where do we want to get, but we don't think how far we've come. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Whenever I have to pull up my history book and look into the early days and where it all started, and it did start around that time when I was 12 years old. I mean, I don't come from a music family of musicians. Nobody in the family was a musician. My grandpa singing in church, and later my dad. But I think it was just more of a very musical family, in the sense that there was music in the house, and my mom was always singing, and my grandparents would sing, and it was just be around that we had music playing. And so I think I just always had it in the back of my head. I don't think I was so much music inclined rather than art and hyperactivity inclined. Like I would just do things with my hands. I would have clay and paint things and just design things with clay, and just play with that kind of stuff. And just I always had the idea of creating, and I always had the idea of not following the norms. So I like to build stuff, but I would never look at the manual on how to build it. I would just force myself to try and figure out how is it built by looking at the picture, which is kind of what we're talking about before. You have a specific goal and you want to get there, but I would put equal importance to present myself with 5-6 tools and be like, hey, how can I build this differently? What can I do that it's mine, that is never done before? And that this fundamentals and foundations were imprinted to me. Like I just seem to really naturally be inclined to, as a kid, not before I even started music. So when the music came along, it was really just a matter of finding the stuff that I liked. And I do owe it, this is the funny story part, I do owe it to my mother's hairdresser. She, I just, like, it's kind of an introduction there. But she was, she's the wife of one of the more prestigious pianists in Greece and the Balkans. And he was the artistic director at the school in the hometown that I was raised. And she, my mom would get a haircut and she would take me there and I would just kind of work on things with my hands. And she saw the flexibility in my fingers and she just said one day, why don't you start him? Why don't you just start him on the piano? So, for a kid, if you want to go with classical music, even 12 years old is pretty old, like people play since they were 2 or 3 years old. If you want to pursue a career as a concert pianist, but regardless, my mother started me, and I did the theory and I did all of that stuff. And again, you're starting at 12 years old, you're kind of old, quote unquote. So they put me in the higher levels and theory and all that kind of stuff. And I had very supportive teachers where they came to a point where they were saying to me or to my family, we're going to be there for him. Really, let's give him some time. Hopefully he's going to be able to go through with that. Funny enough, I caught up very, very quickly. And the contrafact, the contradictory in that story is that from that class of people that we were learning together, theory and the music notes and all that kind of stuff, I'm the only one that pursued a career in music professionally. So it's just sometimes you just never know. But it was an incredible experience for me to be thrown into the deep.
Yeah.
And during that process, I really realized that I needed to musically do things my way. Like things were given to me where I would practice, Mendelssohn, and I love Mendelssohn, beautiful Schubert, Schumann. But I would just get this piece and I just, at the time, might not like it so much, or if I liked it, I would want to change it and make it my own. And that's, take it from a 13-year-old guy with barely any knowledge of harmony or theory. Yeah. So you understand, my ceiling there was so low. I knew basically the song, so I would just use my ear and my understanding and change a note there or here, change the rhythm. So you understand how it exploded for me in a world of possibilities. The better I was getting into the understanding of harmony and theory, but it was always the writing process. It was always the writing process. I just happened to start with the piano, and I still say to this day, this is the love of my life. It always comes back to the piano until other realizations start building upon me, like realizing that I could sing and have people who could point that out to me, understand that I could sing a note, and that note is actually that note that I want it to be, and then just building on that, building on top of that. But it all comes down to the piano, and it all comes down to the writing. So to conclude this, I am very inspired by Bill Evans, which is one of my favorite jazz pianists and pianists in general. And they were asking him in one interview about the material, the vocabulary, and he was saying that the vocabulary is learned once. The lick, a phrase, a chord. When you learn something, you learn it once. Then it is just a matter of applying to the new instrument. So if I want to learn the trumpet, for example, the vocabulary that I have through the piano or by singing or the rhythm or all these perceptions I have of music, I know them already. So whenever you start a new instrument, you never start from scratch.
Yeah.
The only thing you have to work through is the barrier between you and the technical ability of the instrument.
Mm-hmm.
So I can hear all these phrases and melodies in the trumpet, but I have to be able to blow that horn and make it sound like a trumpet and not like somebody who's farting, which is kind of usually what happens at the
at the beginning.
Which is usually what happens. So it's another beautiful and really impactful lesson for me there to understand that I was overcoming a barrier every time I would pick up an instrument.
Mm-hmm.
But all these things would really, really work towards greater freedom and artistic expression.
Yeah.
And that was the whole change of the game right there.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's fantastic. Well, and since you're 12, so many things happened. I mean, today you were a composer, singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist. You work as a solo piano performer, entertainer, film composer, and educator. So I wondered, was that something, looking back, that you chose to be? Like a lot of creative people I talk to, they not only have one profession, they do great many things, and oftentimes they inspire each other. Sometimes it's just circumstance, it happens. And I just wondered where you are today. Is that something you consciously chose, or did things just come to you? How do you work with this?
It depends. I used to think that you have to choose one thing, and growing up in a small city, having people around me that were just really good at that one thing, this guy's a phenomenal guitar player, this guy's a phenomenal singer, this guy's a phenomenal drummer. And it took me many years to get rid of that mentality and understand that I was equally important as all of these elements, if not more, because the glue, the musical knowledge, the idea of being able to see something, see art in something, it's just such a wider game. You breathe art. You are an artist all day. You don't turn it on and off. So I realized that the moment I embraced that individuality, that idea that I could actually be good at a lot of things and use these as artistic outlets, as different ways to express myself, I found incredible liberty. Mm-hmm. And I understand that was my blessing. It's like you have a gift and then you try to suppress the gift instead of just embracing it. And the moment I embraced it, this is where the magic began. I just started to see things, see possibilities instead of seeing limitations. So instead of seeing ambiguity and indecisiveness, I saw endless options. And I choose to see it as a blessing, the fact that I can have songs in all these styles, and I'm able to hang in all these environments, whether it comes to scoring or composing, or because this is just a matter of skill set that allows me to express myself. Now, that took a lot of work, and a lot of work with myself, and a lot of actual work that I put on these different instruments. You just don't wake up one day and you know how to play the trumpet, or you don't wake up one day and you have 1,000 songs, or like it just accumulates all this work we put in, which to me, I don't even think about it. I just do it because I have to do it. So the matter of options, and to answer to your question, let me get my thought together, because you asked me about the different things that I'm doing, right? I like to think about it instead of choosing by something that chooses you, or the process of elimination. So things you do stuff, you just put yourself out there and you do stuff and you create, and you realize that certain things that you do really resonate with you. Certain things you do really resonate with the people outside. And ultimately, of course, we all want to do certain things more than others, but we have to think also how do we bring, bread on the table, and how to pay our bills and all that kind of stuff. So within all this sphere of things that are happening, certain skill sets and abilities have allowed me to have these possibilities. So being able to teach has been able right now to provide me with more income at the time, or gigging.
Yeah.
And then we also have the things that we ultimately want to do, that we are working towards, without blocking everything out of the way, but understanding the importance of where we're trying to go and how we're going to get there.
Yeah.
So I call it, the leap of faith. You're working, or the escape plan. You're just working towards that thing. So if I have a job that I work 60 hours a week, and it's, in America, that's not hard to do, like people work all day. I'm thinking, okay, we're working for that, but we're working for what reason? We're making money. Okay, we're able to live. But after that, when you come home, this is when you start working towards, the dream, the music. And I try to keep that ratio as low as possible, leaning towards the work I have to do. So this is the period of my life where I am now, where I'm really focused on the things that might not pay me now, and don't pay me now the way they have to, or the way they deserve to. But I am putting all that work, and having faith that it will start working towards actually being able to provide me a living with that.
100%.
And I feel a lot of artists are getting confused a little bit. They're thinking, what do I need to do? Maybe I can have a job and have a day job and get this financial stability and have music on the side. And I'm not judging that. Some of these people are some of the happiest people I met. Others do it just because they have to do it. It's for meditative purposes, or for expression, or for peace of mind. And others just do it fully professional, almost like automated, like a machine, session players, which you guarantee that they're going to get there and they're going to get the gig done, and they're going to, and it's just, and then you just have the artists where that's when it gets vague. Artists think like, oh, I don't feel like writing today. It's, and I just have mixed feelings about that, Mark. Really, I just have max feelings about that, because if I want to make a living as a musician, and I'm calling this the escape plan, how am I? And I'm not. If I'm willing to create this life for myself, and I don't want to have a 9-to-5 job, just working all day, that has to be substituted with something. So for me, if I say to myself, you know what, I don't want to have a 9-to-5 job, it's not because I'm an arrogant prick and I'm not gonna, that this is below me. It's nonetheless, it's because if I don't want to have a 9-to-5, I'll need to have a 9-to-9 sometimes, like a job, 100%. like a job of working on my own stuff, putting in all this work, that it just has to substitute with that, and we have to do the work. And it's just, for me, it's second nature at this point. Like, I don't even think about it. I look back and I just realize how much stuff has been achieved in this last few months just by doing the work and showing up. Just by that. I mean, I'm a huge advocate for that, because I've seen it working in me. It's not a special thing, we just do the work, and then we're able to really achieve all these great things.
Yeah. Well, so many thoughts on this. Let me boil them down towards
I know. I'm sorry.
one or two follow. No.
I'm really taking you around.
No. I love that. That's what I'm asking, man. No, I just wondered, like two things. Let me start with this. The whole journey and the whole process of finding your way, finding your place, and also sometimes putting your creative vision and your talent and your skills and also your ego in its place. I think this is something everyone struggles with. Either if they have a spark of creativity, they have a great hobby, whatever, or they want to make it their profession. And I just believe, there's so much struggle and decision making within you, but then again, it oftentimes comes to that one friend you have, that one mentor you have, or the people that surround you, and the whole culture. And I wondered, because to me, going round and round Europe, going to the US and back again, there are so many different cultures that put different pressure points on you, that have different expectations towards you. So I wondered, I don't know when you moved to the US from Greece, but I wondered how much you would put weight on the surroundings or the culture you surround yourself with when it comes to those decisions.
I think this is one of the most important parts of somebody achieving success, not in the society standards, but success in a way that you define success. I do think the incubator, the preparation part is very, very important. And I am grateful that I was raised the way I was raised, in an environment where the society is small and everybody knows everybody, and I didn't have a lot of distractions. It allowed me a lot of time to go through my self-discovery. Undisturbed, in a sense that you're not writing a song because you're thinking, oh, what's the pop thing that's happening now, and how do they write music? And LA culture is a lot like that. You have all sorts of melting pots. It's a mega city with people from all over the place, all sorts of styles, but there is a lot of negative traits to the LA lifestyle, and people being perceived as, shallow and not engaging and not following up, and that thing, oh, let's get coffee, and that coffee never comes, and transactions being and interactions being very transactional, which in a sense I understand. It's like a 20 million people mega city. It's huge. It's really built on the small communities. If you live an hour away from me, both of us live in Los Angeles area, but might not be that easy for us to, be closer. So it's just like really affects the taking time to be there for somebody and engage. And it takes effort for us to do that. But at the same time, I like to think that I believing in people and having faith in the people and having faith in the environment that you are. So LA is really what you make of it. And I feel that there is a lot of great opportunities here for you to grow, just because the possibilities are there. Now, nobody's going to do that for you. You have to come and get it. But for me, moving out to America 5 years ago for school, when I was in Boston and I went to Berkeley and did all my studies there, it's really Berkeley again, like home in Greece. Berkeley is a little bit of a bigger incubator. It's just incubator with holes. You're still growing and trial and error and doing all these things through the school, but at the same time you have the small outlets, just because you are in an environment where you can just take a bus and go to New York, and you're one step closer to this bigger world of opportunities. Europe is the same. I mean, you've traveled, you understand what I mean. It's really allowed me to diversify myself and be able to culturally engage with other people, and just see them for what they are, and start to understand that I am also appreciated for who I am. And in bigger cities, you really get to see that, versus in smaller communities where, people might be more judgmental, or it's not really appreciated, or, you're frowned upon if you're different, and all that kind of stuff. So for me, I feel I was building all these qualities of myself, of how I was expressing myself and how I felt about the world and about the art and about all those things. And then I moved to America, and then all of a sudden it was okay to be that. It was okay to be that. So it's just embracing. But I really, really do believe the environment is very important. But what's more important than that, it's how are you prepared to immerse yourself in any environment? So, and what I mean by that is that, yeah, we can succeed in an environment where there's more opportunities, but you bring it to an introvert person, they just get overwhelmed, they burn out, and they're like, F this, I'm out of Los Angeles because it's just too much for me. So I like to know that I have control of my life, and have control of the inputs. So sometimes we cannot control really what's around us, but we can control how we take it in. So if I happened at that stage of my life to be in a smaller environment, giving up and pessimistic way to go about it is that, oh, I live in a small city. There's not that many things to do. I'm a failure, whatever. I'm not going to do that. And just talk down on yourself. But if you flip the coin, if you switch the equation and realize that, oh, I'm in an environment with not a lot of distractions, I can use that time to really, really, really get myself out of there. Do I want to get out of there? First of all, am I at that place because I need to find inspiration? You know how people in huge cities just like decompress and just go out in the mountains. And so everything is intentional. You know what I mean? You set this intention where you say, I'm going to be out there and I'm going to create. And I don't want these distractions. But then you come back to the city and you're like, wow, I need to do these opportunities now. I need to pursue these things. I'm going to push for it. So it is all just a matter of intention, and understanding that, we're not trees. Nobody planted us there. If you don't like living in Hamburg, you can start pursuing a way to go to a place where might perhaps resonate more with you. But yeah, I completely agree with you on the matter that location is everything if you know what to make of it.
Yeah, if you have the skills and the self-knowledge how to handle yourself and the surrounding. Yeah, I wanna travel again from the outside in. As I mentioned before, I'm really keen to understand what happens within your creative brain when you have an idea. We talked about different phases from training, improv, taking things out, output phases. And we touched a little bit upon just many stylistic forms you choose to put music out there. So I'm really wondering what happens when you either consciously sit down to write something or you just struck by inspiration. I really wonder what happens. How do you choose the form? Because you have very classical forms like preludes, nocturnes, you have blues and pop and jazz influences. And I really want to learn a little bit about your process. What happens when you get an idea and inspiration?
Okay. Well, the inspiration process, the writing process really varies for me. I mean, inspiration is called inspiration for a reason. Something gets called upon you and you just kind of follow that. I usually have a hunch, I have a feeling, I just kind of swirl around the different needs and necessities that need to be taken care of at the time, and trying to pursue that artistically. The ones I cannot control, and they're the most authentic ones that I'm not very much thinking about, are the more spontaneous ones, where something is going to come to my head and it's going to be so strong that it's just one of those things that, you wake up at the middle of the night and you just grab your phone and you just really write it down in your notes. And I have these things from time to time, and they are beautiful, but this is more of a burst of something that happens that I would be a fool not to just capture it immediately. So usually it's things that I conceptualize in a sense that I think, I would like to make a classical album, or I am feeling like playing something more fierce today and technical, and then I'm just going to make a book of etudes, like my technical studies, or it's that late of the hour, and it's just the setup at the house is so beautiful with the dark dim lights, and I feel so grateful that I have my baby grand in the living room in my studio. And I can just, wake up, get out of bed, and the piano is right there looking at me. Nice. Always ready. So it's just, I'm always setting this intention. Exactly how the music is going to come out, I never know. What I know is of a feeling. And what I know of is trust in the writing process, that alignment that I was telling you before. No judgment, capturing almost in the spontaneity, and then immerse myself to see that and be able to receive it and capture it in the most authentic and beautiful way. And I think that's why I work so much on my improvisation and on my technique and on setting that mood, so I can make all these doors open with the alignment. So when the recording button starts, everything is there. I said to myself that I'm not going to judge it. I said to myself that it has to have this sort of intentions. And this is a process that has really, really generated for me some very, very beautiful music that I would have never captured other way. And to bring it back to painting, which I'm sure it's going to resonate with you so much, it's again that idea of the blank canvas versus a canvas where you have an idea about it, you put a sketch maybe, and then I'm just going to go in and color it. But I know that these colors are going to be maybe warm, maybe I'm going for playfulness. So it's just, you set a little bit of intention, and then you trust the muse, you just trust the process that your tools and your skill set is going to go and communicate that in an artistic way. And again, that's one way of writing. The travels, as I mentioned before, have really, really been an incredible outlet for me to create a lot of lyrics and generate a lot of material where I will work on later and make them songs. But since you asked me about the classical stuff, that's why I said this is pretty much the approach for all the instrumental stuff that I do when I score a film, or when I need to grab a song that I have already and rearrange it, maybe make an intro, just improvise on the song, the cadence or the interlude or the introduction. The songwriting process is completely, the actual songwriting process is completely different. Actually.
Okay. Can you tell us about that also? I'm trying to collect as much to also share with my audience how people work with their inspiration and creativity, because it varies so, to such a degree. It's incredibly fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the writing process when it comes to songwriting is really about putting the words and the music together. So I have different ways that I approach that, but I do remember my composition teacher, in Greece, like 18 years old, and asking me to write something avant-garde. We're studying Bartok and Ligeti and all these, and I was not exposed to that. So I was really, really, really startled when I saw that. And I was like, wow, what kind of music is that, So, so he gave me something to write, and I came back with a little piece that sounded like Chopin, and he told me he was kind of like powerful, he said to me, are you the bastard kid of Chopin? And I said, no. And he's like, why do you write what Chopin wrote? Like, don't you want to write like you? And it was kind of harsh, and it kind of stuck with me. But as we got to know each other, and I would have him in classes up until I moved to America. Before I moved to America, he told me one thing. He said, try it. When you write sometimes with your head. Step away from the instrument and try to think before you write, because your fingers remember. Now, I'm not saying I'm doing that all the time, but I found a little way after a lot of thinking to implement that on my songwriting process. So I would have my huge catalog of lyrics, just songs that are like unborn. They're just waiting to become songs. And I would just feel the energy of one piece of paper. I would just pull out the paper and be like, okay, what's that song? And I would look at it, and in the first 5-10 seconds, I would know if I want to move with it or not. So I would just look at it, and I might put it back or put another song, and I will find one song in a little while that really resonates with me. And I say, okay, this song, we can do something with it. So I just sit on the couch or lay down and just look at it, read the lyrics, trying to remember how I felt when I wrote that. And that's crazy. It's beautiful because you're going back on memory lane. Some of these songs I've written 10, 12 years ago, 5 years ago, in America, in Sweden. That's why it's so impactful. Because when you look back on those lyrics, you really transport to the time and place that you wrote it, how you felt, how was I as a person, how did I look, did I have a partner, was I in love, was I miserable, was it a difficult time, was it just a sketch time, and I just think about it now, even us talking, and I have chills because it really sparkles for me creativity, because it's not a song that I wrote yesterday in Los Angeles with all these struggles, with all these things. It's not so right here. I am able to go back and look the entirety. So I can look through all the experiences that I had since I wrote those words, but also the actual time that I wrote them, and then choose to go with it or maybe not. Because you can look at a song from 10 years ago, but you hated everything about what was going on 10 years ago. And you're like, F that, man. I don't want to think about how it was 10 years ago. So it's just, again, it's a matter of possibilities. And I would just look at it, and melodies will start to come in my mind, probably rhythm. How do I want this song to feel? Is it going to be, starting kind of like majory and happily? Is it going to be intimate? Is it going to be groovy? So all of these things are set as intentions, and then maybe a chord will come to my mind, and I'm going to sit on the piano and trying to see if whatever I had in mind can be printed on the piano, or I need to make modifications. And then it's just a matter of trial and error. You play a sound. You're like, oh, do we want that, or do we scratch that? Do I like how it sounds, or do I want to go with another way? And I miss that process, man. I mean, I really, really miss that process. I haven't sat down to write for almost 2 years.
Oh, wow.
That way, to put the A and the B together. I mean, I've written with other artists, but as Pàppa D, as sitting by myself to sit down and create my little temple, my altar, and go there and be safe.
Yep.
I haven't done that, and it builds this excitement for it, but I took away the judgment for it, and I think this is why I'm still sane. And I haven't lost it, because artists can add a lot of pressure to themselves. So they can add a lot of they can call it writer's block, they can call it a burnout, they can call it all sorts of things, and be like, why don't you write, and just add so much weight on it, and it just not happening. But again, I am able to have that thing not happen to me, because I have been doing that for 12, 13 years now, maybe 15 years, actually.
Yeah, fantastic.
So when you're doing that for 15 years, you have all this material. So for me, I am working on old material, and, on the business side of it, and the music business side of it, and, recording all these things that I've written already. So I have material to keep me started and busy, and so I got carried away with that, just because at this point right now, to me, it seems that, wow, there's a lot of material that needs to be shared with the world. And I would rather prioritize that now at the moment, rather than writing another 200-300 songs, but I know that it's a calling for me, and it's like a voice at the back of my head that gets louder and louder and louder and louder, and I cannot wait to get back of it. See, because I created that environment for myself. I created an environment where I don't judge by saying, what are you doing with your life? You haven't written in 2 years. And if I was away from my goals, and if I was detached from all these things I'm doing, and I wasn't working towards that higher success and acknowledgement and sharing that music with the world, all these voices would come from the back of my head and tell me I'm not enough and I'm not worthy, and say you haven't been writing and all that kind of stuff. But now that I understood that every morning, no matter what, I am doing the work, the mind feels good. It's a matter of artistic expression. And when these voices come up and boil and come up again, then I know that I will be excited to sit down and do that, rather than look myself as not enough. You know what I mean? It's just it's a matter of words, and trickstering ourselves to understand, if we are moving to the right direction or not. 100%. And that's the whole power of manifestation.
Yeah, 100% manifestation, intention, and the way you hold yourself as a creative and your creative life. I think this is very important to hear for a lot of creatives, maybe even younger creatives, or people that are just starting to explore their artistic side. Maybe I need to ask one more thing about your process, because I haven't heard about this yet before. Is there any influences from your heritage? Are there any Greek influences in your music, in your in the art you do? Because so far I couldn't listen to your whole catalog, because you are a very busy man. You have a whole Spotify playlist with hundreds of songs of yourself. I couldn't listen to all of them.
Almost 1,000.
Yeah,
almost 1,000.
But I didn't find like classical instruments, or like the folk songs with like Byzantine music, Greek music, all that stuff. To me, I couldn't hear a lot of influence there. Do you think you have that, or you're not in touch with that so much?
This is, Mark, this is a beautiful question. Thank you for asking that. I really cannot stress enough how important some of the Greek music is to me, but not in a way that I have to state that this is Greek music to enhance my identity. Like a lot of people are going to move to America and they're going to play Greek music because they're like, there's a community for that. And, being a Greek in America, you're in a sense, a little bit more exotic than an American in America. That's a universal like truth with like anybody that is going to another country. You're just, just because there's not that many of us. And this is so, for me, it never had to do with that. It never had to do with the words, because I think Greek is one of the most beautiful and expressive languages in poetry. It's a very deep language, and I value that. And I always thought of that as an inspiration, using that in a way to inspire me to be able to translate, but not actually literally translate, more like filter this word and the meaning and the pain, the longing, the things that I experienced that I could talk about longing and pain. Oh, sorry, my hair is flying away. Like talk about this longing and this experience, but more talk about it in a way that it resonates with me, and I can find a way to express that in English. Because I never had the intention to express myself in Greek, but in English, it was always resonating with me. Yeah. So English is definitely the language I am able to express. The beauty, though, comes from the meaning of the songs. And usually the decades for me is the rebetiko, which is kind of like the blues of Greece, like 1920s, 1910s, the bouzouki, all these small combos that were playing, all this music about, immigration, playing, the music and, in the ports, and, you're leaving and you're missing your loved ones, and love, but like love, not in a way that today's music describes love, like in extremely beautiful and elaborate ways that I have not the capacity of words to put into how beautiful these things are. And I think it resonates with me. It used to not resonate as a teenager in Greece. You're getting all the trends. You're like, I want to move to America, and Greek music, blah, Yeah. But after moving away and having that homesick feeling, missing the family, missing the places that I grew up, missing the language, I understood a lot of that love was brought in by, funny enough, my grandparents. They are the ones that were like really keeping it together, because through them I discovered a lot of these songs from 50s and 60s and 70s, where there's really good quality music in every culture in every country of the world. And when I go to other cultures to listen to the music, I will start with the 20s, 30s, 40s to the 50s, 60s, 70s, these three decades. And then I'll touch 80s and all that kind of stuff. Sure. But if you're going regional, like with Cuban music or Puerto Rican music, Brazilian music, and, German music, Lithuanian music, Spanish music, Italian, and then, Asian countries and Middle Eastern, all that kind of stuff, like Iranian, like you can see so many similarities. But I think the two things that do gravitate me towards that element, which it's a very hard thing to do, to be able to express that in your music, is the fact that it sounds like it's not from 2023, and the fact that it really creates this longing feeling. Like, when if you ever felt like you're not, like you were born in the wrong times and all that kind of stuff, or you think from your parents how it was in the 70s or the 60s, or so it's just that feeling. But for the Greek songs particularly, it's all from my grandparents, songs that my grandpa would sing to my grandma, and I would hear them sing in the house, and just bring tears to your eyes. So these create a very, very deep feeling for me that I will listen to it, and I don't have to make that kind of music, but the more I listen to it, that feeling is molded through my artistic process and my writing process.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. That's very nice.
Thank you for listening. Yeah, this one is truly one of the most beautiful questions you asked me today, because it's really from the heart, you know.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a piece of heritage, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Dimitri, there are a million more questions, but I have three more for you to not expand this podcast too much. But I'm really wondering, with everything you do and the different outlets you choose and the variety of the body of work you have, I really wonder how you navigate this, not just from the artistic, but also from the, I mean, you touched a little bit on that, but also from the business or more strategic perspective. Maybe you can get us a glimpse on how you as an artist, as a musician, navigate that, how much room you give this part of the journey. If you say, okay, I want to manage and keep it boxed, or do you really strategize? Do you say, okay, I need to focus more on classical because this is a trend, what is happening in the industry? If you can give us a little brief overview how you manage and strategize on the business end of it.
Yeah. I don't really listen to what is happening as a matter of a thing for me to do in order to gain more attention or attraction or fame. I do follow my intuition and musical influences and try to be open and diverse. I also like to work with what I have. Mm-hmm. So if I'm dreaming of this swing big band album, Mark, with 20 horns and like that's a great thing, and it can totally happen, but I cannot let the fact that I might not have the resources for something to discourage me from doing that. And I'm not gonna wait and be passive and think, oh, when I have the money to get that big band album, that's gonna sound that way. So I always like to work with what I have, and to be able to create with what you have and follow that intuition. I think it's the most important skill that an artist can develop, because there's no formula for that. I mean, people sell recipes out there and they say, do that and then do that and then do that. But at the end of the day, it's all just a learning process. You keep learning and learning. I try to stay open. I do spend time on social media, but I use that time for very, 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 very directed purposes. It's not just scrolling and all that kind of stuff. I found a lot of my gigs through there. I found you through there, seeing the podcast with my very good friend Sam, and just understanding that there is more the idea of networking and seeing what happens there and how you can come together with the people, but also at the same time maintain your privacy and your sanity. So to be able to see it for what it is, but understand that, when you see great successes in other people, to not think that you're less or not beat yourself up and all that kind of stuff. Now, as far as the business side, you said, for me, it's really about the time management and what needs to be done. So I was always pretty organized, but coming here now and starting to open all these different portals in which I extend myself, I realize, especially if you're handling everything by yourself, it can be quite stressful. So if I'm handling my my bookings and my press, and I'm doing all my interviews, and I'm doing all my releases, and I have to record the song, produce the song, mix, master it, release it, do the artwork, handle all the distribution platforms, then videography, recording of the shows, handle the YouTube channel, so you can just have the videos where people can see you, handle the booking and like the emails. It's something that really is at a point right now where I am to where it gets mildly overwhelming if not handled properly. Yeah. So I do believe that it takes a village, and you need a team of people, and you need people there. And I thankfully have the support system of people where they're there for me, and will show up at the shows and will support me and come to, and will be part of my music, and where it's rehearsal, where there is me being able to provide that as well for other artists, but people who are doing some of these things for you, I find that still not quite there yet. And because I believe that for me to be able to trust somebody to handle my YouTube, like it's a lot of work, and they need like access to like my videos, and so it's like I'm still doing the work, but then I'm giving it to somebody to do the work. So I'm just thinking, I am at a point now where it's building up to a point where I can still do all of that work on my own. I just have to set intention. So I just try not to mix with it. Like when I rehearse, I rehearse, and when I work on emails, I work on emails. And when I mix and master my songs and I finish them, it's just that part. So I'm just trying to keep, although it is multitasking, it doesn't really happen at the same time. So I just trying to set chunks of time where I focus on these things individually. And lately, just because it has really elevated my presence on social media, and through that I got a lot more gigs, and through the community of people, just by going out and showing up. And if I'm not playing a gig, I'm going to a friend's gig, because it's LA and there's like 60 things happening every night. I managed to create this momentum. So that's why the press and the more business, I call it business, but it's not business. It's just like the external side of the music, started to gain a little bit more of my my attention. And again, speaking of being in a location, this is not stuff that I would pursue being in Greece, growing up in a city of 30,000 people, where there's mild press and there's 5 venues to play, and you go out and it's the same people you see. So now for me, having all those tools and having all those songs and all this material written already, I understand that it's probably the best time for me to push this stuff that I have written already, because the world doesn't know about it. It might seem to me, I want that new song, but there's plenty of people out here in Los Angeles that are thoroughly enjoying the music that I have been making already. And that fuels me personally with insane amounts of energy. We're talking about insane amounts of energy. So although it is work, and sometimes it can be 16 hours a day work, and it's constantly work, it never feels like work, because everything moves towards that greater good, bringing people together, talking about art, and I don't know, it really has transformed my life in a incredible new height.
Well, that's an interesting phase you're in, and it sounds like you have the best setup for this, and you're so much in control of it, and you're so calm with it. So maybe you have a little tip for all creatives out there that sometimes get overwhelmed, get stressed out, lose maybe focus or track on things. You talk a lot about intention, And I hear you have a lot of focused time that you can really dive into one activity. So do you have some kind of tip on how to get that intention and focus? Is it music? Is it meditation? Is it weed? What is it, Dimitri? How do you keep intention and focus?
Do you say, is it weed?
Yeah, I'm asking.
Oh, okay. No. I'm just curious because I just look. There's a lot of formulas. Since it's a game of words, I will pull up the great Ray Charles when he was asked an interview about drugs and all that kind of stuff that he was doing, and the interviewer asked him, "What is your advice on younger artists who take substances, and since you were a heroin addict and all that kind of stuff?" And what he said is that I don't like to give advice. I don't think I'm in a position to give advice. And he said, I can tell you what I did and what I didn't do, and hopefully that will inspire you. So in me being personally inspired by that, I can say that I say all these things and I share all these things with you because these are my philosophies and these are the things that I go by and I try to go by. And I'd be dishonest to tell you that it's always like that. It's like we are humans. It's very hard sometimes to keep doing that, but I'm sharing the ethics. So for whoever is listening, to get that inspiration and set some sort of foundations to know that, hey, there's progress in that if you do that. It's not easy all the time and it's not consistent all the time, and I get stressed all the time. But what I can say is that every time I get stressed and I deal with it, every time I get overwhelmed with all these things that I have to be done and I deal with it, I understand a little bit more about myself, and I understand a little bit more about how to navigate and deal with a situation. I don't want to say like I'm a workaholic, because I think being a workaholic, I don't know, it always to me had not a negative meaning to it. It just seemed like I just imagine this stressed person just like working. And I'm not really impressed when I come across people who are like talking and they're like, "Oh, I'm just busy," and it's super busy and stuff. And like I feel the times that I have to present it to somebody, I sound almost like I'm making an excuse, just because I know myself and I know that when I want to make time for somebody, I'm making that time. No excuses. You don't have to explain. So I just always got fascinated by the idea of just doing the work, and that seemed to be the meditative part for me. And the stress really comes from a point of knowing that I have to take care of 60 things in a span of time, and my fast-paced brain is just thinking that, oh, that thing is still there, why haven't you taken care of it and stuff. So I think the whole focal point comes to that balance. Understand that, hey, what needs to be done immediately, what needs to be done during this week, what needs to be done during this month. And I know this is like pretty basic self-explanatory things, but you really have to get yourself in a position where you have so many things to do that again, it's a necessity for you to really get your shit together and get the schedule down. So I really like to plan my day at night, and I know every night before I go to sleep, the huge chunk of the day, what is it going to be and stuff, and taking little notes throughout of what needs to be done, because things always will come up, things will always change. So again, it all comes down to organization, but at the same time being flexible So people don't freak out when, oh, we're supposed to meet with Marc at like 9, but I messed up the times and now I'm freaking out. The whole schedule is ruined. So just be always able to adapt. And that thing applies to everything. That's why I gain inspiration from life and apply it to music. And I gain inspiration from music and the way I make music and art and all that kind of stuff and apply it to life. That's why I'm saying that at the end of the day, it becomes one cohesive thing that it's really, there's no shortcut for that. So somebody who's just looking how to navigate these things and how to take care of all this business, a lot of that kind of stuff will be experienced along the journey. And I really wish I had, people share more of the things that I'm sharing now. I didn't have that opportunity, but at the same time, I'm not resentful about it right now. I'm thinking that maybe I wasn't ready to receive all this information, and I had to bring myself to a certain point. And now that I am at that point, I feel there's so many more people sharing and inspiring me and pushing me, again, about elevating me to greater heights where I can inspire others and I can be inspired by others. And I think it's just a very beautiful thing.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. Dimitri, I have 2 questions I ask all my interview guests at the end of the podcast. It's 2 quick, simple questions. The first one, we talked about so much about inspiration and everything, but I want, maybe you can have one nugget, one piece of inspiration that you enjoy right now and that you want to recommend to the sweet people, to anyone listening. Is there something that really, really puts a ding into your universe right now that you want to share with us?
Any sort of inspiration?
Can be anything. Movies, books, places, people.
Wow. Actually, I have to think about that, because it will be drawn from as small things as watching a little video that can be 30 seconds that just shares something that I might be needing to hear, to that one song that is going to play on the radio. I think for the first time in my life, inspiration is really coming from myself, from being able to be proud of what I do, and really being able to be my greatest supporter rather than judge me and think that I'm not enough, or because it's when you do all of those things and you push for all those things and those late nights and early mornings and long hours and always trying to bring a good performance and trying to stay on top of it and push for the things that you really want to do. Not always everybody's going to be next to you. And the idea of a burnout can happen there. You can feel like you're alone. You can feel like nobody understands you and all that kind of stuff. So to be able to go through that and find inspiration and find passion and find energy, find ways to generate energy even when you don't have to. When I don't have all the time necessarily somebody next to me who can be like you, be like, hey, Dimitri, just, you got it, man, get it together or whatever. Just when I don't have those things and I manage to bring myself up, I think this is something that really, really, really helps me start finding self-love and start finding peace. And when you are like that, you're peaceful. It's almost like a shield. You're like you're like like you're walking with a shield. You're grounded, and then you can just radiate like a sun.
Yep.
You can radiate, and people can get that light from you rather than for me being clogged with insecurities and all that kind of stuff that I need to
Yeah.
that I need to be somebody next to somebody who's glowing in order for me to get a little glimpse of that. But yeah, and then I choose to see inspiration in people. I mean, I think people is the most important thing we have. They're around us. They can elevate our lives and create experiences with us, and have people appreciate what I do, or be able to see people who they are and just get to know them.
Yeah.
This is where I really, 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 really get inspired lately. I get extremely inspired because I run into people that do the same thing as I do, that push for their dreams, and they have a lot of stuff, and that takes a little bit the focal point from the me to the we.
Mm-hmm.
So you still, deal with your stuff, and you're still going through things, no doubt about that, but you understand that, wow, everybody's going through stuff, and then we can just all enhance each other's lives, and that's tangible. You can touch it, yeah, because inspiration is drawn by a lot of things, by the books and the music and all that kind of stuff. And I think that inspiration mainly gravitates me towards the music and the art point of it. But people are entities, are just tangible entities with life and breath to them. So I have been lately really, really inspired by that.
I appreciate that answer. Thank you. That's beautiful. I really enjoy that. And I don't want to add to that. That's a standalone, perfect statement. My last question is this. What can we look forward to? What is happening in LA? Live shows, releases, videos, whatever is happening, please tell us about it. Where can we listen to more of Pàppa D?
Wow. Well, I'm very, very excited actually to be wrapping up this year, and for the beginning of the year. I know that there's not a lot of stuff planned after the beginning of the year, but one thing that I'm very excited about is that I'm going on tour for the first time. My first professional tour. It's not Pàppa D music. I will be working with a cruise ship, and we will be actually leaving in less than 2 weeks from here for rehearsals, and then sailing from San Diego. And it's a gorgeous itinerary. We're going to Mexico and Hawaii and the Pacific Islands and Australia and New Zealand and Indonesia, and just incredible places that I have never been and always dreamt of going. So I would not have done that trip if it wasn't such an incredible opportunity for me to explore, see the world, get inspiration, and write a lot of music during the trip, just because of the incredible things that are happening in Los Angeles right now. And I know it won't settle in unless I really set sail on the ship and realize that, wow, I'll be back in 4 months.
Yeah.
But LA is going to be right here, and it's going to be waiting for me when I come back in April. It's going to be a very nice change of pace, and the time that I have now until I go on the tour with the cruise and to close the year is to I'm working on finishing all the albums that I have recorded for the remaining of the year, which is mainly a lot of live shows that I have done in Los Angeles, and some studio recordings, and drawing inspiration from Bob Dylan, funny enough, and the band. They had a studio album that they released that I was listening to on Spotify when I moved to Los Angeles. That was over 70 or 80 hours of music, which was which was all the little songs and demos they sketched out that summer of 1960 something, in a little basement in the Midwest, where they would just go there and have the recorder right all day, and Bob Dylan would sit in with the band and just work on the songs. And this is kind of similar that I've done. And I've gathered a lot of material through that, probably 4 or 5 hours of music with a band here in my house. Amazing. With microphones, with drums, so it's just a matter for me now to go through all that kind of stuff and finish all these recordings, master them, do the artwork, and cue all these releases through April. So for the next month, there's going to be consistently music being uploaded. Since I'm not going to have very good service on the ship and all that kind of stuff. And I want to focus more on the writing and the bigger plans for the 2024, for the next year after I come back, is more traveling and touring, really establishing the relationships I have in Los Angeles already, where we can play more music and we can do all these shows and be part of more artists, which is an incredible thing that's happening already. But also to be able to go on the road and start spending time in other cities and trying to find a way to build this beautiful sense of community that I have built here and got immersed to right here in Los Angeles, to try and do that in other cities, because there's a lot of wonderful people in Austin and in Nashville and in New York and San Francisco and Seattle that I had the privilege of traveling through all these years in America for, for music and for all the other reasons that are there, sharing their music, sharing their art with open mics, with shows. And I would really like to do that. Fantastic. Have that be a very sporadic and traveling year the next year. Fantastic. But it's going to be full of music. It's going to be full of music. It's going to be full of writing and full of incredible acquaintances with people. And I cannot wait for it. Actually, I'm very excited about next year.
Fantastic. Wow, Dimitri, thank you so much for this insightful, fantastic interview. I wish you all the best for your fantastic travel. That sounds amazing, traveling the world for 4 months, playing music, doing what you love. And we're gonna keep an eye out for you, for new releases, for videos, for little traveling behind the scenes. So in a word, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your experience, and your inspiration. And thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much for having me. It was very nice to sit and chat with you about all those things. And it definitely didn't feel so much as an interview. It was very nice to sit and share with another great individual, just ideas and knowledge. And I'm very grateful that we got to do that. Huge shout out to Sam Stokes for sharing you in her socials and seeing that you guys sat down and had that conversation together. And I'm very much looking forward to the future.
Thanks so much, Dimitri. I hope you'll be back on the show, and I hope we get to meet in person one day.
Yeah, me too. That would be amazing.
Thanks so much. Take care. Bye. Whew, sweet people. Another fantastic interview, I have to say. I was really interested in talking to Dimitri because I have a big passion for music, but I never pursued it as a career. And he chose his very own path in that. He's a very talented musician. He can play different genres: classic, jazz, pop, singer-songwriter, blues stuff. And I really appreciate it to have the guts as a performer, as an artist, to choose not to choose, to say, okay, I can play these different genres and I will. I'm going to release a classical album with preludes. I'm going to do a classical guitar track or piano album. and then I do a whole solely bluesy album. So you're not sticking to one genre, you challenge your audience in that sense. And I really think that speaks for a lot of integrity as an artist, and also a very clear idea of who you are and who you want to be as a brand. And this is something, if we come back full circle to what I do with the Sweetspot Studio, if I talk to entrepreneurs or brand owners, the decision of what your brand is going to be all about is basically the same questions you have to ask yourself, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're a musician or a musical performer. And you can challenge your audience and you can say, hey, we're a more complex brand than others. There's, of course, one product brands, and they have a very straightforward, very simple approach. Also, as a musician, you can say, okay, I only do singer-songwriter stuff. I only do thrash metal, whatever. And then there are multi-instrumentalists and educators and creative people like Dimitrios that choose to build a more complex brand, which has a lot of potential and also a lot of challenges to face. Because if you see him one night performing some classical music and you want to see him the next time and then he does some funky, sweaty blues stuff, it's a very different approach. And I enjoy that. I enjoy if brands are, also personal brands and artist brands, dare to be more complex. Yeah, so that was very inspiring. And I enjoyed that when I asked him about the Greek heritage, he seemed genuinely happy about that question. And this is, to me personally, always a big win if I can talk to people that get interviewed a lot and they don't give their usual answers, or they can answer without thinking, which of course is always valuable and always great insight. But if you can make them stop and think for a second, or if you can surprise them with a question, I always feel like you touch new ground, and it's also going to be fun for the people I talk to do the interview. And it's not just going to be promotion or chitter-chatter. Anyway, sweet people, thanks for watching, thanks for listening wherever you get this. If you want to learn more about brand building, about design, about producing your own media products such as this podcast, video series, whatever it is you have in mind, feel free to reach out to me on sweetspot.studio or on one of my socials. So maybe we can find your sweet spot together. Anyway, we'll be back in 2 weeks with another interview or a deep dive on some kind of design case study. Until then, stay sweet, stay safe, and I see you on the other side.
This podcast is produced by Sweetspot Studio. New episodes each week, wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you enjoyed the show, leave a rating and subscribe to never miss an episode. Find out more at sweetspot-studio.com.